If you want to lead 100 lifetimes in one, then you please be an entrepreneur because it will bring out the best and the worst in you. I believe that success is nothing but managing failures and coming back. Of course, you need dedication. Of course, you need to work 70 hours a week and all of that comes along with it. But if it is without luck, then whatever you do will not work. People talk about, oh, it's 30% luck, it's 50% luck, it's fine. I think it's 100% luck.
Overcoming failure or maybe amortizing failure is to understand the power of failing better every time.
Insane number of founders who I really look up to, and they say that too, they've built large businesses, and it's 100% luck because without you being at the right place, right time, there is no way you can actually build anything of impact.
A lot of our viewers should understand from there that if you're joining this journey of entrepreneurship for glamour, then you're better off not doing it.
Yeah.
Because the pain will burn you alive till the glamour comes.
Steve Jobs' biography, and I think it was a defining point. I never said no for another project that was put on me. I never said no in terms of anything that stretched my bandwidth.
Welcome to the new episode of the Lifeboat. In this episode, I have a very dear friend and once again a dynamic entrepreneur who created a one-of-its-kind fitness platform to get your health right, Fitternity. Fitternity, which was acquired by CureFit. So let me introduce you to the founder of Fitternity, Neha Motwani. Neha, a management studies student, gave up a good, cushy consultancy job to become a successful entrepreneur. Neha, through the Lifeboat, speaks about her entrepreneurial journey. कुछ ऐसे पहलू which budding entrepreneurs के लिए बहुत जरूरी होगा जानने के लिए and सीखने के लिए. Her middle class upbringing and how उनका mindset उस middle class upbringing ने shape किया, and how her entire college life and her mindset in college life, including how extracurricular activities made her develop that character, which finally उनके entrepreneurship journey में शायद उनका सबसे कीमती औजार थे. And that, my friend, is so important for you all to realize. नेहा ने अपने job life के बारे में भी share किया, and how that sulemaani keeda finally came up to say that she had to don that entrepreneurial hat and go across and start what she wanted to, which was Fitternity. Listen to what Neha had to learn, relearn and unlearn to be a successful entrepreneur, and how the importance of humility and staying grounded despite the success and recognition became her biggest character strength. She talks about mentorship and how mentors आपके entrepreneurial success में एक बहुत important role play करते हैं, and ऐसे बहुत सारे चीजें जो आपको miss नहीं करनी चाहिए. Sit back, enjoy the episode, learn from it, use the information and keep building one step at a time. Watch, like, share and subscribe to the channel, and comment and let us know what you thought of this episode and what helped you. Once again, friends, welcome to the Lifeboat. Let's dive in.
Neha Motwani, how are you?
Great, Vinayak, Burman, how are you?
Excellent.
Great.
Thank you for doing this. I am generally very articulative in terms of stuff that I do. My profession demands it. But when it comes to some people, Neha, and people who have a very, very large piece of my heart, words don't fit in to express the gratitude that I have with respect to the role that you play in the life of a lifeboat, or more importantly, in my life. So I can't thank you enough. I can't thank Karan enough. I can't be grateful enough for the relationship and the moment and the fact that you played such a beautiful, kind hostess and invited me and my entire crew here for this hopefully very interesting, very crazy, थोड़े बहुत मजाकिया, थोड़े बहुत serious conversation that we're going to have. So once again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Thank you, Vinayak, from the bottom of my heart for doing this. I absolutely love what you are embarking on. It's very exciting. And yeah, I am looking forward to the chat that we normally do and the ruckus that we normally create today on camera.
But I'm going to start by talking about things, Neha, यार जो बहुत कम लोगों को पता होगा. Okay, I'm not going to talk about the usual Neha Motwani. I'm not going to talk about the glamorous Neha. I'm not going to talk about the Neha who's all over, where people know what you've built, people know about fraternity, people know about the fantastic journey. We'll come to those in specific pockets. But I'm going to talk about a lot of other things that people don't know about. Right from the first cusp in a person's mind, and I look at it from the perspective that a lot of it depends on the background that you come. Because when you come from a middle class background, and middle class again has different facets. There is a lower middle class, there's a mid middle class, there's hopefully an upper middle class. But when you look at the situation of the background that we came from, especially if it's the mid middle class or the lower middle class, it's a beautiful zone, right? It's called this ever aspirational zone. I call it the ever aspirational zone for the simple reason that it's about wanting to do a lot more, wanting to achieve a lot more, because you're in that funny place where you're not poor enough to be hopeless. You're definitely not rich. You're in the two-wheeler zone trying to get into the four-wheeler, in the mindset analogy if I do it. But it's also about creating that delta for yourself. A lot of it comes in right from the very beginning. Tell us and take us let's get a little nostalgic. Let's go back to that early days of your childhood. The first time you had that cognizant feeling, that identification-oriented aspect. How and when does mindset evolve? And to what extent does that shape you as an individual going forward? How many times have you seen that peaks and troughs of things changing and yet creating to a great extent what you are today?
Sure. I think parents play a very pivotal role, right? And I think for me, it has been similar. My journey is a little unique. I've been adopted by my uncle and aunt, and I started living with them. And
I don't think you've said this publicly ever. This is something which I knew, of course, but and this is your first public disclosure of such a deep essence.
Yeah, maybe, but I think it is sort of, like you always say, it is part of who I am, and I think it has played its role to make me who I am.
Okay.
I think my empathy, my wanting to prove myself, creating my own charter and trying to impact. I think some of these things come from that backdrop of the fact that I lived in a family which was, of course, loving and very, very supportive. My father was a chartered accountant. My mom was a homemaker. But the focus on education, and I think what you sort of mentioned, right? What was that cusp and what was that change and how was early life? I think early life was about doing well in studies. I think it was literally just that. And
which is what middle class teaches you, right?
Exactly.
Education is everything.
Correct. And just focus on education, focus on being a good child, getting good marks. But I think one part of my journey which was slightly different was that I love to paint and I love to sketch. So growing up, I thought I'll be an artist because I absolutely loved it. I used to do multiple forms of art, oil painting, charcoal painting, glass painting. I had exhibitions as a child, so I sort of felt that that's who I am sort of meant to be. The spark of entrepreneurship came in a little later for me. And like I'm an accidental entrepreneur, and we'll talk more about that. But I think the spark of entrepreneurship came, honestly, when I read Steve Jobs' biography. So my background was school, college. Out of college, I was doing my first job in consulting. And that's when I got a hold of, Steve Jobs' biography. And I think it was a defining point and the cusp of the journey, because I was just amazed at how one individual who came from a creative bent of mind, because I thought I was always creative. I was not the math girl, or I was not the sports girl. I always felt like I came from creative, and how he created something like Apple, and how he introduced a product which people did not know they wanted, and that sort of laid that foundation. And while I was in my consulting career, I was sort of seeing how internet was changing India, right? And this is sort of 2010. And I think reading that book and then seeing the impact that internet was having on India, very, very early nascent stage of startups, starting out. I think both those aspects together, meant that future was going to be really, really about entrepreneurship, tech, internet, consumer, right? So I think all of those thoughts sort of probably started.
Now take a step back, or rather jump a step forward. Life in the consultancy world. Aeon Huit is a very big name that you're a part of. A lot of our viewers might be in that zone where they're looking at a job, they're looking at a big brand, they're looking at perhaps even getting intimidated at times, saying that, yeah, will I be able to survive? Can I go across and manage the expectations? Can I go across and create that kind of a persona to be able to make and identify my own mark, my own footsteps? So take us a bit about life in consultants. When you join a big brand and you are a nobody, but you have to make yourself into somebody. Again, you will perhaps wonder why I go so granular, because every aspect of our discussion is where I will extrapolate learnings for the viewers, because there are people who will be there and who may feel lost, but may hear how the survival hacks are in terms of big consultancy firm, and maybe take back home some learnings there. So take us through that, Neha, who entered that corridor of a large company. How was it? Was it really intimidating? Did you manage to win over? How did you win over? What were your biggest learnings from there of what to do, and more importantly, what not to do, which led to the entrepreneurship turn, which we'll talk separately. But take us about life in a consultancy.
Okay. Actually, I may not be the right person for life in a consultancy firm, because I spent 3 years and then ended up starting Fitternity. But yeah, those 3 years, like you said, were very intimidating. I was right out of college and wanted to make a mark. Felt that this is it, right? This is my sort of ticket to becoming the CEO. I wanted. Right. I was like, बस अभी ये company का CEO बनना है, right? And I started as an analyst, actually, senior analyst, consultant, senior consultant. So really sort of went from the base. And I think what sort of consulting teaches you, right? It in a way, because of the fact that you are, week 1 you're working with a pharma company, week 2 you're doing telecom, week 3 you're doing media, right? And you're put into multiple projects. It's a grind. And it, in a way, sort of preps you, right? It's very similar to B school, because in the sense that...
But this is real baptism by fire.
Correct. And I loved it. Honestly, I sort of felt that this is what I want to do, right? When I was in consulting, I felt like I want to become the CEO of my firm because I love doing it. I love meeting new companies. I love understanding their problems, working on solutions, presenting to the management, working on some execution projects. And I think learning there has been simple, right? I never said no for another project that was put on me. I never said no in terms of anything that stretched my bandwidth. I was there to learn, and I didn't want to chill. Like basically, you also know me as a first bencher, extremely dedicated student. So I was a very, very dedicated person.
You had a lot of personal jokes, Karan and I, which we share about your crazy retentive first bench mindset.
Yeah. So I was always up for new projects, up for work. I used to be extremely hardworking. And, I'm laughing when I say that is because at that point of time, it was very one-dimensional in terms of just hard work. Did not understand what is smart work. Now, of course, there's delegation, there's more efficiency versus effectiveness and 2x2 metrics that we talk about. But at that point of time, Gadha Mazduri, you were the Gadha, right? So you were actually doing all the work. But taught me immensely, right? I think right from presentation skills to being able to communicate yourself, effectively. I think things that worked for me, like I said, I never said no for new projects. I was always there, first person in office, trying to sort of, create an impact. And had some wonderful leaders, wonderful managers who helped me, sort of shape that experience.
So a lot of it you brought into your entrepreneurship journey. Let's go a little interesting. Let's go to a little more of a controversial question that I have to ask. What are the biggest things that you unlearned in your life as a consultant? What are the things that you would say that you would not do when you were building Fitternity? So let's talk a little bit about life, because life has two facets, right? In every chapter. Like in my journey, I've been part of some of the largest law firms in the country. And of course, there I learned a lot of my DNA got created there. But when I was building vertices, I also had a lot which I unlearned, because I brought in a lot of what not to do when I was creating what I was creating. So let's take a bit about that, because that's also important for people to know that everything is not just how it's presented. जो दिखता है वो हमेशा होता नहीं. लोग कहते हैं कि यार जो दिखता है वो बिकता है, but also जो दिखता है हमेशा वो होता नहीं. So let's talk a bit about those aspects. That also is going to be great learning for our viewers.
So that's a brilliant question, and an absolutely sort of very well articulated question, because according to me, when I now think back, and I've never really thought about it, I think I unlearned 100%. 10 out of 10 things that I did in consulting, I realized did not work.
True.
Right?
True. And I'm glad that you're being honest.
No, I think, I think we were, in HR consulting, and everything that we spoke about in HR consulting in terms of things to do were not valid for a startup. Maybe they were valid for a large MNC, but they were definitely not valid for a startup. A lot of the things that we talked about in terms of manpower planning, org structure. What's an org structure in a startup of 3 people? There's nothing like that, right? You really sort of start from ground zero, and there are no rules that apply. The only rule is that no rules apply.
Absolutely. You're the toilet cleaner and the CEO.
Exactly. So a lot of unlearning, a lot of realizing that the expectations to have things organized, to have people to do it, to have resources at your hand completely go down the drain. So the accountability starts coming in. There's nobody to stop the buck, right? I mean, who do you pass on the buck? The buck stops at you, right? And I think that realization and that understanding takes a while to unlearn, right? And I think similar for you as well. From large organization to starting your own startup, that's the biggest unlearning. That the buck stops at you. You can't pass it on to anybody.
There's no one to look behind.
There's nobody to look behind. Ultimately, aap hi ko karna hai, right? And you, no matter how bad of a day you have, next day morning you're supposed to bring that smile on, show that dedication, show up, and make it happen.
Absolutely. Every day you have to search for the silver lining. You made a very interesting statement. You said that hard work was what was evident during your consultancy days, but then you realized later that it's also about the smart work.
Yeah.
A lot of people have, spoken about smart work with a very interesting term that they're giving to it. Some have called it Jugaad, some have called it hustle. Why I emphasize on this is again because there are 2 schools of thoughts vis-a-vis this. And this becomes very important when you're building a company. One school of thought is that Jugaad is overrated. फालतू चीज है. Jugaad shortcut है. जुगाड़ ना कहीं से तुमको कुछ करके बीट करना है. You just go across and fight that fire that's happening there. Long term में उसका कोई काम नहीं. A lot of people say hustle is completely different. Hustle is about constantly building, achieving, creating. It's outcome. A lot of people say smart work is all about combining these 2.
Yeah.
Because hard work is obvious. You don't even need to count of hard work. Hard work to karna hi hai. So let's understand a bit more on this of Neha's definition. Define your essence of Jugaad versus hustle, and give us some examples of how that helped in that entire entrepreneurial mindset that you were building. Does it come as a post facto, or does it come the moment you realize that yes, yaar, ab to kuch alag banana hai? So let's get a little bit of depth into that. Along with that, Neha, I want to ask one more question. How does one realize that now is the time to jump? How does one realize that ab mujhe banana hai? How does one realize कि यार बहुत हो गया, वो सुलेमानी कीड़ा है. Keep talking about this. Entrepreneurship is सुलेमानी कीड़ा है तो सोने नहीं देगा, नहीं है तो जलने नहीं देगा. Right. So how does the सुलेमानी कीड़ा come in? When do you realize this is the time to jump? Take us a bit through that.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about when is the right time to jump. I think that there's no right time, and I'll sort of go back to my story. Right. I was in consulting, super happy, and I think one additional aspect about consulting, apart from the fact that it's great learning, you're working across sectors, etc., I think it really creates a lot of luxury and a lot of comfort. Actually, luxury is the wrong word. A lot of comfort in life.
Business class, 5-star, multiple EAs. There are multiple things, and you're adding value in terms of different companies. You're directly reporting the board and CEOs.
So so I think that comfort in life, to an extent. And I think when you are sort of deciding to take the plunge, right? And for me, it didn't happen as that sort of decision to sort of sit down and whether do you pay heed to it or not, right? And my story was that I was in consulting. I was looking for a yoga class when I moved to this house, and I couldn't find the class. It was just dial. It was very sort of fragmented in terms of finding and booking. And we're talking about back in 2012-13, right? Very, very nascent for tech ecosystem, startup ecosystem. And I basically felt that there was a better way to transact fitness in the country, something which was affordable and accessible. And that was the vision, right? We did not have a model at that point of time.
So that's also serendipity in a way.
Absolutely serendipity. And it was my mother-in-law, in fact, who sort of said that, you should do it and don't think about it. And she, of course, comes, being an entrepreneur herself.
She's a core entrepreneur. I
Yeah.
think she's got hustle, jugaad, entrepreneurship all embedded.
She's
within
the
her.
OG. Yeah.
She's the OG, I
Yeah.
agree.
And she was basically like, you should do it. And, if not now, when? And I literally, at that whim, on my birthday, drafted, in 2013, drafted the resignation letter and sent it with absolutely no understanding of what I'm going to do, just creating a backup, because my manager was moving into another firm. I told him, if something happens after 2 years, if I don't cut it, please give me a job. Yeah, so I think with that sort of backup, I just went into the deep end. And I basically felt that if I don't do this now, I will never do this. So I think for a lot of people, what works is that statement.
Mhm.
And that sort of resonates because if you really want to live multiple lifetimes in one, the only way to do it is by starting up, right? It will show you the best and it will show you the worst, right? And I say this all the time that if you really want to live life and live multiple lifetimes, if you want to live 50 years in that one decade, the only way to do it is to build a startup, right? And the only way of starting out is just taking the plunge into the deep end and figuring your way out. So a lot of serendipity and a lot of just conviction that kuch na kuch to kar hi loge yaar.
So when that happened, and when you said kuch na kuch to kar hi loge, when did the essence of that jugaad or hustle come into play? And what's your definition? The world has so many definitions.
Yeah.
I want to hear your definition.
Yeah.
And what's your school of thought?
Yeah. So
Do you think it's overrated?
No, I don't think it's overrated. I feel like operating in India, being in this kind of infrastructure where you're supposed to sort of survive every single day, I think hustle comes naturally to us in our normal life as well, right? Train pakadne ke liye bhi hustle hai, Uber bulane ke liye bhi hustle hai, sabke liye hustle hai, right? So I don't think it is fight har cheez mein marni padti hai. We are Indians, we are used to it, right? But the hustle starts in a startup, I think, at the very core of it. And I'll give you an example. We were trying to hire people, and this was sort of very, very early days. Where would you go, right? We didn't have the capacity to go into colleges and say that we want to hire. This is 2013.
Yeah.
And we reached out to friends of friends. And basically, we told them that our only requirement is that if you own a laptop, please come work with us. That was hustle because we couldn't afford laptops, right? We didn't have the understanding of how it will be to hire somebody, how they will be with us in the long term. So we created this hustle of saying that aake trial karo, work with us for a week, you'll know, we'll know, and let's sort of, figure it out. So I think a lot of those, early days were about trying to figure out how to operate in an environment which was not created for you, right? 2013 was not a market to hire for startups. Nobody understood what a startup is. Nobody wanted to join you.
At that point of time, there were just 3-4 names. It was Flipkart, Poyo, maybe maybe Ola.
Yeah, I think it was Zomato, Flipkart.
There was only 4-5 names.
Correct.
People were still thinking, ये तो अजीब सा beast है, founder एक अजीब सा प्रकार का creature है, जाना भी चाहिए कि नहीं. In fact, I know a lot of people. I keep joking a lot and laughing about this कि काफी बार रिश्तों में ना, अगर आप बोलते हैं आप स्टार्टअप में काम कर रहे हो तो वो रिश्ते रुक जाते हैं. स्टार्टअप क्या चीज है? लड़का सेटल नहीं है.
Correct, exactly, and I think ESOPs are not of any value. So getting you to sort of go into the competitive job market and making somebody join, of course you had to do jugaad, right? Of course you had to hustle. So I really feel like I think it's very similar. I mean, for me, I think jugaad comes from a mindset to operate where the ecosystem's not created in sync with how you would want things to be and you need to change status quo. That's for me Jugaad, which is operating in India, karna hi padega. And I think hustle for me, I think the way I look at it, right? My lens has been in, for me, when I sort of look forward is there's a long-term lens and there's an everyday lens, right? Long-term, the way to look at it is that, at least the way I sort of, pan my day out is what are the 3 things that I'm sort of trying to achieve? And that could be 3 months, 6 months, 12-month plan, right? And at a daily level, right? And, the 2x2 metrics, right? Right job and job right.
Yeah.
Right? So how many jobs are there which you need to actually do, right? Which are the right jobs? So I, as a founder, you and me, Vinayak, will have 100,000 things, right? You're firefighting all the time, right? So are you choosing the right job or are you wanting to do the job rightly? So it's effectiveness versus efficiency, right? And no, I think I have made that mistake as a founder. I have been sitting in office for 13 hours working on things were not the right jobs, but I was doing them right. And I was feeling great at the end of the day and I was feeling efficient, but was I effective?
Yeah.
And I think now when I look at it, number one question that I ask a founder is that what are you focusing on? And is this the right job or are you just focusing on doing it right?
And also the same matrix to applies to what is urgent versus what is important.
Correct.
A lot of people mix up even there.
Absolutely.
I want to actually pull this through now to a very interesting part where I'm actually going to go into first tangible capital. India, unfortunately or fortunately, I'm smiling because, I'm actually on both sides of the coin. I see both aspects. And I've also seen in a situation where identifying that right investor is not just about the check. It's just not about the name of the investor. It's not just about the speed of closure. A lot of times, Neha, it is also about the intangible capital that comes in. And this is perhaps the most important component of having an external participant in your capital. Your journey is perhaps one of the most unique ones. Because in the journey of Fitternity, and I've been very, very fortunate to be there from literally day one, yours is one of those rarest situations where you started with institutional capital in the first round.
Yeah.
Then actually had angels come in, which are very large HNIs as angels in the second round. Then you had a marquee fund come in the third round. And we've been through different emotional curves with each of these types of classes of investors, if I may call it. But every time, along with the tangible, there was an essence of the intangible. My question to you, to help our viewers understand, how does one value the right investor on the cap table? How does one understand the value of intangible capital?
Yeah.
Should someone even actually concentrate on understanding an intangible capital or say that, nahi yaar, it's about the mahal matters. Abhi to yaar meri fati hui hai, 2 महीने का रनवे है, मुझे पता नहीं कहाँ से आगे दूंगा, पैसे आ रहे हैं, चुपचाप ले लो. वो सर नहीं यार, पैसे आ रहे हैं, लेकिन उस पैसे के साथ जो बंदा या बंदी आ रही है, या फिर जो इंस्टीट्यूशन कैपिटल में आ रहा है, what can they do additionally? What can they create for the health of the capital? So take us a bit through that mindset. Intangible capital का value क्या है आजकल?
I think very interesting question, and you're making me think about things that I have not had a chance to. So it's actually very intriguing.
That's the purpose of this podcast altogether.
Yeah, I think tangible capital supersedes, in my opinion, because business needs capital, and at that point of time, whether it is coming with the intangible or whether the color of the money and all of that, according to me, doesn't matter.
But isn't that directly proportional to your mahal, to your situation? To your
exactly. Hence, I'm saying that to what you said, अगर runway नहीं है, business को बढ़ाना है, capital चाहिए.
Right.
According to me, you cannot control anything else. You may take money from a great investor who you think is great intangibly as well, but may not turn out to be. The board member that they bring in might not be the great person, right? Or a great fit for you and your business. So I feel like
being polite, at times a board member can turn out to be an asshole as well.
Yeah, sometimes. And I feel like what you can control is, ensure that you're well funded and you sort of get going with regards to always having enough capital. And I think twice in the journey of Fitternity, we reached a point where we didn't plan in advance and we were running out of money. We had 2 months, 3 months salaries in bank, and I think at that point of time, what matters is the money, right? Whatever intangible you want to give or you don't want to give, please give me the money, right? And but having said that, I think I saw the power of the intangible that you're talking about when one of the angel investors, family offices, Mr. Vijay Taparia, he came on board, and according to me, I think when you have that kind of mentor, the mentor who's basically saying that I'm concerned about you and the business. It doesn't matter what capital I have put in, right? I want you to be okay and I want your business to succeed. And when you get that sort of, intangible, I think that has superlative impact. Because I remember prior to COVID, when I would brainstorm with, Vijay sir, his entire sort of logic to me was bare down to the basics. He made me think about things which were important for the business and not for what investors would expect me to, right? And there's an insane power, right, on the intangible, and that I think sort of plays out. But in my experience, I was too naive. I was too innocent when I was doing Fitternity, and I did not know the difference. But now, of course, I do. But having said that, you cannot optimize for the intangible. You can only optimize for tangible.
And you can hope for it.
You can hope, exactly.
True. So, when people have multiple types of institutions on the cap table, and as I said, yours is so unique that you started with institution, moved to angel, then marquee. And you also had a situation where there was this opportunity which resulted in a very well-known acquisition that happened in the country at that point of time. When these kind of deals happen, and the reason I ask this is because these are things which are so micro that people who only experience can explain it to, the depth for viewers to even try and understand. That when you're looking at situations of potentially an acquisition, for a founder, the business that the founder is building is the founder's baby. It's everything.
Yeah.
And then you realize that perhaps it's time now for the baby to grow up in a different home where it might be even more nutritious for the baby. At the same time, there are foster parents, and the foster parents are these investors who are at different timelines who have come to the cap table, and each one has a different expectation in terms of that situation. How the baby should behave, how the baby should perform, how much of affection the baby should show to individual investors. I'm giving this analogy of a baby, but the fact of the matter is that everyone has a return on investment concept.
Correct.
And different milestones, different time steps, different entry points have different expectations. Someone who has managed so many emotions of so many different people and successfully gone through an acquisition has gone through baptism by fire in my life. I've been fortunate to be through every fold and every path of that baptism by fire with you. So I also perhaps now have the right to exercise to ask you some very hard-hitting questions. My question number one, for the benefit of a lot of viewers: how easy is it to manage egos on a cap table? How easy is it to manage expectations on a cap table? And how easy is it to suddenly realize that the founder finally could be the fall, or the fallback person, or the final responsible person for everything? A lot of people don't talk about these hard questions, Neha. I'm asking this question because end of the day, everything falls back on the founder. So take us through that mindset of ego management.
Yeah. So I think first, Vinayak, you're being extremely kind by saying that I have done all of this. I think we've just been super lucky, been there at the right time, right place, and have managed to sort of raise money and exit. So I think the point that you sort of mentioned, right, about how to manage expectations of the cap table, I think it goes back to the conversation that we were having, which is, the trust factor and the relationship, right? Because the investor who comes in first will, of course, have sort of exit plans in X number of years versus an investor who's come recently. And when an acquisition happens, it all plays out together, right, in terms of expectations and mismatch. But the underlying thing that I think we managed because of the fact that we had good investors who had the intent of just supporting the company, but and the maturity. We basically, had good relationships and had that inherent trust, right? So we knew that whatever might be on the legal documents, and which of course you drafted brilliantly, that underlying fact was that there is trust. we will do right by them as founders and they will do right by us as investors. And when that happens, I think it's sort of easier. But to anybody who's sort of looking at it, saying that how do I manage, and looking at this podcast and thinking how will I navigate, I think you will navigate, because when you're in that position, like the way multiple times we've conversed,
there's no other way out.
There's no other way out. The only way out is through, and you will find a way.
You'll walk through the fire.
Yeah, you will walk through the fire. Sorry, we need to cut.
Second emotion. Second question. It's so difficult to part with something that one builds, because you have to have the maturity to understand that perhaps what you have built is going to shine through far higher somewhere else. Also, the fact that it outlines a lot of other aspects. Accountability towards your people, towards your staff, towards your customers, to ensure that an acquisition lands up with a safe haven for all of them. There is this entire mindset to say that last minute FOMO or the last minute fear, saying, do I want to do this? Do I want to, or should I try and give it another twist or another approach altogether? But then understanding that no, this is a win-win for all. And when it's a win-win, it's always we over I.
Correct.
The founder's essence is always about we over I. The moment it's I over we, you fail. So take us a bit through the mindset of someone who goes through an acquisition.
Yeah.
Because there may be viewers who are right now, the mahal is such, the atmosphere is such. There are a lot of situations, there are a lot of consolidations happening here. Fundraising is not as easy as it used to be. No one knows how long the winter is going to last. So there may be a lot of people in that mindset to say that, yes, there is an opportunity. There is a great consolidation opportunity. There may be an opportunity to go across and find that right partner, right fitment, but yet may not be sure about things because of not knowing the softer elements of an acquisition.
Correct.
Take us a bit through the mindset of an acquisition and what one should expect vis-a-vis shelving that entity into somebody else's care, and also how is life post-acquisition?
Okay, so I think a lot of layers to sort of talk about. I think the journey for us, was very clear, right? See, I think first question.
And actually, you take us through also along with this. I'm so sorry I'm interrupting, but I also know how COVID hit you so badly, right? And it also showcased that where there was, a threat turns into an opportunity, and that is what beautifully is what you did. You turned a threat into an opportunity. So take us through that entire pattern of what happened that time.
No, I think the number one question, right, is that do you really build for an exit and do you build for acquisition? And this is something that you can't build outcome backwards. So did we build Fitternity to ultimately get acquired? The answer is no, right? So I think there is an emotional aspect of building, which is like you said, it is like your baby, your culture, your people are things that you've sort of created from grounds up. And it's super difficult to sort of, have that feeling come in. But at the same time, you're running a ship, you have responsibility of all stakeholders, including investors. And I think today, how does an investor exit? The moment you take venture money, you have to give exit, right, to the LPs. And you can give exit only by doing an IPO or an acquisition, right? So in that sense, it has to be very common and it has to be done, right? But how do you gear yourself towards it? I think for us, we were not preparing for it. Like you said, COVID happened. We were on our way to raise Series B.
We had 3 term sheets at one point.
Yeah, and it was all great. And, we were finally sort of having the grip of the business, inching towards profitability. This is back in 2019 and things were great. In 2020, we had 1 term sheet from a strategic and COVID hit. And at that point of time, Black Swan event, which we were of course all experiencing and thinking, abhi khatam ho jayega, abhi to bas 1 month more, 2 months
It's
more.
just going to phase out.
It's just going to phase out. And but of course, right, I mean, while we had decent runway, it was not long enough to make us sort of scale and survive. We pivoted the entire business from offline to online, but online monetization had its own challenges. And we had this, term sheet, the strategic one, from a company which is based in the US, which sort of continued, right? And at that point of time, we basically were like, okay, is it practical for us to actually evaluate it? And yeah, I mean, it was practical. And I remember some of the conversations I had with my investors, and they actually said, is this something you really want to do? It is great for us, but do you want to do this? And it was an extremely difficult time and a difficult decision, because business went from X to 0, and the plan was to take it from X to 10X. And this was a time when you felt that you had the grip and you had exactly what you needed, right? As a founder, you had the conviction and you knew it. But then the circumstances were completely different. And we were super lucky. We had sort of CureFit come in, and with 2 term sheets out there, we were actually able to get the right terms for the team, for the investors. So in all, I think from an acquisition standpoint, it was 1 + 1 11. We were able to not only sort of scale, but also sort of create a lot of things which we individually were not able to, right? A lot of business models scaled really well with CureFit. The team did very well, and overall it was great, but it really came out of an extremely sort of difficult
It's like wrenching
times.
your heart out, but for the sake of victory for all. Because at the end of the day, it was still a victory for all. Everyone went through with a very positive outcome.
Absolutely.
The essence of a true acquisition is that it has to be positive for everyone.
Correct. And I feel like this is not a plug, but I'm saying this, right? I think the one thing across all conversations, all investor, raises and the acquisition was, who was the lawyer, right? And thankfully I had you, I had my Harvey Specter, and it was all in terms of saying that, I have Vinayak and Vertices backing us. It's super critical, honestly, if I say that seriously. I think if you do not have the right legal agreement, or if you don't have the right person talking on your behalf, because today a ROFR and a lick pref seems like terms and words and harmless. And when they actually truly come into conversations, all of it goes right out of the window, and it's who's negotiated for you and who sort of front-ended all of that. And I think that would be the number one thing that I would sort of look for, across all of this, apart from relationships and trust and everything else.
You're too kind. You're too kind. You made a very interesting statement. You made a statement about, and of course you plugged it with humility as well by saying that it's not what you went ahead and drove and ensured closes and goes to the right conclusion, but it's also about right place and right time. I want to dwell a bit about this because this outlines the essence of luck.
Yeah.
A lot of founders, in their essence of hubris, forget that there is a factor called luck, and they believe everything is done by them. Why do I ask this? This is a little sensitive question that I'm asking you. But founders are also human beings. When you taste success, when you taste a little bit of glamour, when you taste a little bit of PR, when you suddenly realize, okay, you're being featured in X or Y or Z, and suddenly these 40 under 40s and 30 under 30s and 50 under 50s are all suddenly popping up and mushrooming up, and again, the essence of jo dikhta hai wo bikta hai. Suddenly you see that where there is visual, where there is a lot of PR, people also surrounding those individuals. It's very easy to get that hubris. It's very easy to suddenly have that 2 feet above the ground approach to say, yeah, it's me.
Yeah.
Everything is me. Why I ask this? Because there are 2 types of categories where the viewers could be. One, very young viewers who are mesmerized by such founders and believe that they're entering the world of entrepreneurship because the end result could be glamour. And then there could be another set of founders who are experiencing this wonderful phase and perhaps somehow realizing that there's a little bit of hubris coming.
Yeah.
You've gone through this whole phase. You've gone through some tremendous highs. You've gone through lows, and yet you're such a grounded, such a calm, such a humble person. Like, I know the card of love, affection, and emotional blackmail that I had to pull out for you to come and have this chat with me. So I also know that you're someone who's not going to go out and talk in multiple places, while it's so easy for you. How does a founder maintain sanity? How does a founder maintain that mind balance, that thought process to say, ki everything the way it is still at an arm's length. I need to still stay grounded. Because as a founder, my karma is to build.
Hmm.
How does one go through that? Tell me a bit about that.
So I think a lot of things that you touched upon, right? And I feel like, yeah, there is that glamour part of startup that one can get attracted to. And I sort of remember in my journey, getting invited for awards and being part of discussions and speaking is all great. But at the end of the day, you realize that that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. When you actually get it, when you're actually in it, it signifies zero. So you might be speaking on TV one day, but if you're going and doing your meetings and you're not growing, or you're not profitable, or if your CSAT scores are low, how does it matter, right? So I am of true and complete belief that it is a waste of time. And
Is this in hindsight?
it is in hindsight. It's absolutely in hindsight. And it
So
is,
tell us the reason for this evolution. Take us a little deeper, go a little granular.
I think it's the 10-year journey, right?
Is it that ageism is now factoring in to say that तूने सब देख लिया, कर लिया, and therefore you're like, it doesn't really add value? Take us through that mindset for viewers to understand.
Ageism, I'm not that old, but
You're one of the rare ones who are coming and saying that you don't want to play the ageist card.
no, of course I don't want
play
to.
the ageist card.
No, I don't play the ageist card.
I'm
Neither do I
so-
play the feminist card.
I'm so.
No. So, anyways, no, I feel like the glamour attraction obviously exists, right? There's Shark Tank. There's just so much glamour around now being a startup founder and everything that comes with it. But honestly, when you are building a venture, it is a roller coaster. And I say this, that it's a blindfolded roller coaster. So you don't even know what's coming up, right? And it's an insane journey. I think what matters is literally your mindset to focus and what you're building, right? Are you building it with the right people? Are you building it with the right processes? Do you have the right goals in check? All of that, right? And having done all the PR, etc., I feel like it sort of derails you. At least for me, I felt like I was not able to focus on all of it. And even if you go and take those awards and you are there and speaking at places, it really doesn't add value to me. Okay, of course, it adds a lot of value to other people and why they do it, and I sort of respect them. But I just feel that it takes time away from the business, which I don't appreciate. So it's been more of a journey, and I feel it's great. And founders should be sort of celebrated, right? But at the same time, I think as a founder, that journey about what works for you and what doesn't work for you will get clearer. And I think I've spent it's bespoke, and I think it's been 10 years for me. So I now know what has helped me and what has not helped me. And I've realized that I have sort of come on the curve and come down, and I have seen that what matters at the end of the day is what you're building and who you're building with.
True.
And not really how many awards you're getting and where you're speaking.
I think what's important is that external validation matters. I won't take it away. It definitely matters. But what matters far more than external validation is self-validation. And self-validation is tangible in terms of actual outcome, what you're building, as against what perhaps you're showing to the page. I think there's a world of difference.
Yeah.
And a lot of our viewers should understand from there that if you're joining this journey of entrepreneurship for glamour, then you're better off not doing it.
Yeah.
Because the pain will burn you alive till the glamour comes.
Correct. And the glamour may come, but what you'll realize on the day of glamour, when you go back home or office, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
And the other thing that you touched upon beautifully, you spoke about humility, right? I think people talk about, oh, it's 30% luck, it's 50% luck, it's fine. I think it's 100% luck. And I know insane number of founders who I really look up to, and they say that too. They've built large businesses, and it's 100% luck, because without you being at the right place, right time, there is no way you can actually build anything of impact. And it is not about humility. I think it is also just about understanding you are just trying to do something which is insanely difficult in massively limiting circumstances, to having right investors to back you, to having the capital, to getting the team together. I think it's a stroke of luck and nothing more, right? Of course, you need dedication. Of course, you need to work 70 hours a week and all of that comes along with it. But if it is without luck, then whatever you do will not work. Yeah. So I'm a firm believer in, feeling grateful, feeling lucky. And it's very critical for a business to be at the right place in the right time to actually create the impact that they intend to create.
Very deep. And a lot of people need to realize that irrespective of what you may want to give credit to yourself, a lot of things conspire to make things work for you. And that conspiracy of that universe is called luck.
Absolutely.
And if you manifest it, I personally believe, if you manifest things, you'll manage it. Like, think of it. Yeah, would you ever imagine? And I'm in the business of an advisory business, right? The business of law. But for a lawyer to go across and also have the creative streak, to manifest that creative streak into resulting in something which I personally believe, this is what I believe is my way of giving back to the ecosystem. And that ecosystem is twofold, right? It could be a lot of people who are building, a lot of people who are looking at investing, but a lot of people who are young advisors as well.
Yeah.
Along with this, there is another very interesting emotion that people don't talk about. And that perhaps is one of the most defining emotions in a founder's life. And that emotion is known as the emotion of failure. A lot of people don't want to talk about failure. A lot of people believe that failures could define you. A lot of people say that failures are those shame games which I don't want to talk about, because everything that I want to talk about is my victories and my wins and my achievements. My personal take on a failure, and I've said this on several occasions, Neha, there is not a single individual at whichever level that you are that will not fail sometime or the other in life.
Absolutely.
The true essence of overcoming failure, or maybe amortizing failure, is to understand the power of failing better every time.
Absolutely.
Because when you fail better, all you're doing is you're creating that differential from success versus doing things positively, slightly lower every time, which basically means your probability ratio of doing things better increases. But failure can also break you. Failure can also create emotional quadrants which are not necessary. What's your advice to a lot of our viewers who perhaps overstate the essence of failure in their initial journeys, or perhaps are letting failure define them? How does one who's seen several situations of failure and converted them every time into a victory, converted them every time into a win, how does one like you define the essence of failure? And what's your advice to those viewers to say that how does one deal with failure?
So, I believe that success is nothing but managing failures and coming back, right? How you end up failing every time and ensuring that you fight back. And I think, I have learned this from my husband, Karan, who also runs a business, that no matter how bad your day is and you're sort of down and out, right? It all depends on that how do you just end the day, wake up next day morning, and that's a fresh start, and you look at your problems with a new set of eyes and ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? If this really does matter in 5 years, then I need to crack at it, I need to figure it out. But if it is not going to matter in 5 years, then let it go. And every single time going back and waking up next day and doing that again and again and again, I feel really truly defines somebody who can manage failures and come back. So I completely agree with your definition, right? How do you manage failure and come back? And ultimately that's what defines you. And you're right.
Better every time.
Correct. And come back better every time.
Because after every night, there is this morning, and every morning will have a silver lining in the cloud. It's about mindset, the ability to identify that silver lining.
Correct. And I think the other thing that has helped me is really getting to know who I am and myself better. And I did not know a lot of this when I was building Fitternity. It's only in post the acquisition and the break thereafter where I have really tried to understand, more about myself. Introspection, working on who you really are and what you value and what makes a difference to you. And a lot of that also sort of makes you realize that the fear of failure is sometimes deep-rooted. A fear of failure is sometimes coming from certain fears, and how you need to sort of tackle it.
You've touched a very relevant point. Again, I was smiling because this is very core to my heart. You spoke about that, taking that time off during that break to introspect. You had that ability for the break because of the way you went ahead and created, built, and then delivered the business. A lot of people are in the phase of building. I personally believe life is about compartmentalization. And I personally believe, and I say this several times, the most selfless thing that you can do to yourself, Neha, is to be selfish. And that has a lot of depth, which basically means not selfish in the generic sense, but selfish about yourself, which means taking that time off.
Yep.
Taking that small pause, taking that small break,
Yeah.
recapitalizing your mindset, recalibrating your mindset, repurposing your mindset. All of that can only happen when in that life that we call as a marathon, where we are actually doing sprints within the marathon, we have the ability to take that step back and say, can I look at it with a zoomed out view?
Yeah.
I know it's very difficult. It's easier said than done. But tell me, would you today in hindsight advise a lot of our viewers who are in active roles of constantly building and hustling and creating, and perhaps hamsters in their own treadmill, right? And they're constantly within the fire and the frying pan. Would you emphasize on that small moments of stepping back, taking that zoomed out view, taking that, I call it the power of going slow at times.
Yeah.
Deaccelerate at times so that you can accelerate and move further. How important is the essence of compartmentalization in life? How important is it to create that my time, my space, my zone?
Yeah. No, I think I've not been the right person to do that, and I have learned my lesson the hard way because I used to be constantly busy, calendars always blocked, and it's only until sort of recently that I have changed that sort of gear. And I heard Warren Buffett say this, which is basically being busy is the new stupid, right? And it resonates so much, right? Just because you are at it, doing 10 meetings a day, figuring out multiple reviews does not mean that you're really impacting. And I think how much you're spending time on improving learning for yourself, learning for people around you, understanding yourself better, focusing on what you need to do. At this very moment, maybe you doing a review meeting is not that important versus you taking a break, or you going and spending time with your family, or you working on something, or you writing your notes from thoughts that you've been having. So I feel like having consciously slots in the calendar which are meant for only strategic thinking, and we've spoken about this before, and I think that's very, very critical because I have learned it the hard way.
Like I have a calendar zone, right? And people laugh at it at times. At 12 in the midnight to 1:30 in the midnight is a calendar zone which I have, which is called me time. And that's the time when I download, because I take a lot of my thoughts into my construct, and that's the time I'm not available for anyone. And I may be doing as random things as weightlifting at that point of time, perhaps just reading a book, perhaps listening to music, perhaps doing nothing, just thinking.
Yeah.
So it's so important to carve out that time.
Yeah. And there's no point of just being busy for the sake of being busy. And we earlier spoke about right job and job right. And I think there's a lot of value in just saying that, can I take a step back? Can I just figure out at this juncture, what do I need to do as a leader? Because you may just run the ship and keep running it for the next few months. But the strategic thinking that needs to happen for you to take the organization to the next level, and only you can do that. Nobody else in the company.
The person in the mirror.
Exactly. And I think that is super critical.
That's why I say Lifeboat often lands up in a conclusion that the person in the mirror is the true lifeboat on so many occasions.
True.
It's very easy at times for a founder to have that hubris to say, यार हम बाकी सब में पानी डालेंगे, यार मचा लेंगे, कर लेंगे, देख लेंगे. दूसरा mindset होता है, नहीं यार, I am good at XYZ. And also acknowledging the fact that I'm good at XYZ, which also means I'm not good at ABC.
Yeah.
And accepting that I'm not good at ABC. Now, the power of acceptance is very difficult and very rare at the same time.
Yeah.
But maybe that power of acceptance results in also identifying that this is what I can do versus this is what maybe I need XYZ. And that XYZ could be a co-founder, it could be great L1s, L2s, it could be great KMPs. So how does one outline that mindset, and why I ask this is because again, to dwell a little deeper into, a lot of viewers may be in that zone to try and choose a co-founder.
Right.
In that zone to say that yaar shayad main akele kar paun ya shayad na kar paun. That dilemma is there in the 50-50 mindset. How does one go into that? How do you know Or more importantly, how do you identify a co-founder?
Right. So I think my learning on this has been, Vinayak, that the power of acceptance is not optional. It is necessary.
Mhm.
I think that's how one should begin looking at it. You have to accept the fact that when you're building a venture, what does the venture require? Does it require technology, operations, consumer, scale, sort of breaking that down in terms of the bare minimum requirements, in terms of skill sets, and saying that what do I fit in? And being very conscious about the fact that, of course, आप सब कुछ कर लोगे, right? Today, for example, for a founder to even begin to say that I will achieve this and that, they have to be, in that sense, at a mindset level, feeling that they can do everything, right? But it's super important to what you said, right? I think the power of acceptance starts with saying that what out of these skill sets can I actually do? Because it's a very lonely journey, right? So one is about skill set and the other is about who can join you on that journey, right? I would definitely recommend doing it with a co-founder, doing it with somebody who has not only complementary skill sets, but also somebody, again, who has that trust factor, who you know. It's like marriage. I think it's more complicated than
It's more
marriage,
complicated.
right? Because in marriage, there is a trust, underlying trust, which is default. In a co-founder relationship, default is not trust, and you sort of need to build. And my learning has been, with the fraternity journey, that it's extremely critical to have a co-founder, to have it in a complementary skill set, somebody who can actually do aspects that you are not good at, or things that, and maybe the co-founder can
Or
do them
someone could do
better.
it
Better, exactly, right? It could be somebody who could do it better. And honestly, it is a very, very strenuous journey. And it's like that, right? Are you walking fast, or are you sort of reaching the target or the journey? But the walk and the journey is the most important, right? And who you're walking it with, that makes the final difference, right? And if it's not a sprint and if it's a marathon, you need to ensure that you're running with the right team.
And someone who's carrying an oxygen pack for you as well when you need it.
Absolutely.
I think it's beautifully put. You put another very lovely thing that you said right now. And I'll give you, and it moves on to the next layer of a natural progression of building an organization. You said it's more complicated than a marriage, and I completely agree. Why? Because in a marriage, you're still accountable for each other. But in a journey where you as co-founders come together, you're not just accountable for each other, you're accountable for that entire organization. Absolutely. And several other stakeholders whose livelihoods are dependent on that organization. Which takes me to the next level. And that livelihood, when I come across and talk about the key team members. I talk about key hires, the L1s, the L2s, the L3s. Something very close to your heart coming from the HR background that you had. But one of the most difficult things we have, and I keep saying this, I've said this so many times, कि आप अकेले शायद एक नाव बना, बहुत बढ़िया नाव बना, लेकिन आप इकट्ठे एक जहाज बना सकते हैं, और उस जहाज का capacity, capability, caliber can be much more.
Absolutely.
But to identify the right tools, the right hands, the right teams. Why I ask this? Again, a lot of our viewers will be in that situation, and it can be both ways. One, they may be in the zone of hiring their next level of people, or somebody may be considering a founder or a startup to say, I want to join there as a key person. Right? And it's an emotion both ways.
Yeah.
So take us through the journey of hiring the right people.
Yeah.
What was your learning in terms of getting that right team set? How relevant is the right team? How do you understand, and how did you rather identify that A, B, C are the reasons why this person is a great fit? Or versus, one of the biggest things that happens, that the resume is shouting out that this is the best bet, but actually that would be the worst mistake. And a lot of times that happens. So take us through the mindset of a founder hiring. What are the things that a founder should look at? Likewise, if you have to advise a lot of our young viewers who are looking at joining a great ship, what are the things that they should look at a founder? This is a both-way journey. Take us a bit through that.
I think brilliant question, Vinayak, and my mental model on this, right, is actually very clear. So I ask myself 3 questions when I am sort of, seeing a potential hire. A, do I see them being curious and passionate about what we are trying to build? Very, very important. more important than skill set.
True.
Are they passionate about what we are building? Second is, do they have integrity? Is it something that I can respect, right? And number three is, do I see myself chilling with them? Do I see myself actually having a coffee, getting stuck at the airport and having conversations? Relatability, right? And somebody who I want to spend time with, right? So I think these three aspects, A, passion, second, integrity, and third, being a friend.
कहाँ मुस्कुरा रहे हो?
सोच रही हूँ.
हद है यार. जाने मन आगे बढ़े. And यार ये बताओ, how does one recognize passion? I'll tell you why. Passion तो यार can be something that a person outlines in that interview. बहुत बार क्या होता है, it's like that arranged marriage phase, right? Everyone's on their best foot forward, best behavior. Candidates coming and showcasing a different aura, talking the talk. We have dogs barking now in the background. So
Yeah.
excellent. So talking the talk, but not necessary. We'll continue with the dog. So it doesn't matter. But not necessarily that they walk the walk.
Yeah.
So passion, again, why I'm saying we go a little granular is, again, it's not generic, right? Everything has to have far, far more extrapolated data. One of the things here for viewers to understand is, how does someone recognize passion genuinely versus that, okay, someone's just talking the talk at that point of time.
I agree. For me, I feel like meeting them over multiple meetings, trying to understand what really drives them and why, not the what, right? Why are they passionate about this? Why do they want to do this, right? It does come out. And I feel like over time, as an entrepreneur, as a founder, maybe you develop the mindset to maybe read it better. But at least whenever I have put my sort of focus on understanding if somebody is passionate about what we were building, in 9 out of 10 cases, we've been able to sort of rightly predict whether it was, like you said, coming out of more of an interview preparation or really sort of
within the DNA.
And it will come out, right? Sooner or later, it will come out. And I think to answer the other part of the question, right?
That is very relevant. How does one recognize the right founder, the right team, or the right house to enter?
I think same 3 questions, right?
Reverse it, is it?
Reverse it, right? So today, for example, if you are the founder and I'm joining your startup, right? Number 1 question, right? What Vinayak is doing, why is he doing this? He could be doing anything on this earth, right? He could be consulting and making more money, but he's starting a startup. He's building this from the grounds up. What is driving him, right? And that's super critical, the why, right? The why of you doing this. Because it is at least a decade of your life, if not more, that you're contributing to this with blood, sweat and tears, right? And that's the question I would ask Vinayak, right? So it is sort of the interview the other way around as to why you're doing this. And what if it doesn't work out? What will you do then? What's your backup plan, right?
And definitely you're giving a very interesting perspective for the viewers to understand that the receptiveness of a founder is also equally important. Because you should not come with that God syndrome to say, okay, I am hiring you before I ask all the questions. Because you can only build a ship together when everyone's feeling the essence of belonging. And belonging can come when you, as a candidate, have the freedom to also express and ask.
Absolutely. So as a candidate, I should be able to ask you, A, what's driving you? Why are you passionate about this? B, understand integrity, and that's very, very difficult to gauge. But I do feel like when you come under tough circumstances, people sort of either tend to break and then sort of resurrect themselves, rebuild. And the integrity sort of, comes out. And again, if I sort of put myself into a shoes where you are the founder, I'm sort of trying to join you, I will try integrity question, not directly, but indirectly. I will go and ask other people who worked with you, how is Vinayak as a founder?
Do the diligence,
right? Because today, if you're not able to respect that founder's integrity, you wouldn't want to join him or her, right? And third is, like I said, right? Can I sit and have a evening with you when I can sort of just talk and chat? Can you be a friend who I want to hang out with?
Yeah.
And today, that is, I think, really undervalued but super critical, because the journey is going to be super tough. and you want to take that journey like we were discussing earlier, right? You want to take that journey with people who enjoy spending time with. And I feel like, again, that's a massive positive of entrepreneurship and being a founder. Imagine you can actually select, pick and choose the people you want to build with, right? You want to sort of build a startup with, you want to spend time with. And I think that's what, probably in Fitternity, I sort of loved. I loved the team, the core team that we created. We used to take holidays together.
I remember.
We would do everything together, right? And that was the kind of connection that we shared, almost like a family. We loved hanging out with each other, and hence everything seemed like fun, right? Solving problems was fun. Working on Sunday mornings was fun because it was with the team.
And also because you resonated well. Right? And I used to keep saying this, and I'm smiling because you said something very beautiful. When you build and when you create a startup, it's equivalent to the analogy of your cohort of friends. You have the liberty and the benefit of picking and choosing.
Absolutely.
Whereas in a job, it's like a family.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
The whole
Correct.
process, you have to deal
Correct.
with them,
Correct.
whichever way it is.
Yes.
So it's beautiful, so powerful. In this, you also mentioned, and I want to go back to another very important point, which nowadays I see not happening, or maybe happening, but yet not being vociferously outlined. You used a little while ago the term mentor. I think mentorship, in a way, today, as a term is overrated. But in actual implementation or impact is underrated.
Yeah.
I have seen 20-somethings calling themselves mentors. I have seen people being mentors and saying that I will charge you for mentorship. Or make an earning or a living from being a mentor. Which I find a little fallacy, because for me, the essence of mentorship is that first, you should have created or built or be worthy enough of being called.
Have the credibility.
Have the credentials. Right. And second, that's not the way you make money. That's the only way you create a legacy.
Yeah.
So mentorship has to be in terms of advice as against earnings. I want you to deep dive a bit for a lot of people to understand, and this is where perhaps this is one of those rare aspects where it's a question basis the gender as well. Everywhere you'll hear a lot about bromanship. Everywhere you'll hear a lot about brohood, bro code, wingman, backing each other up. But very rarely do we hear and resonate equally about sisterhood. In fact, there is this unfortunate adage of saying that the crab of baskets is far, far more prevalent in the fairer gender than ours. But I also know that you've been very fortunate to have a cohort of some fantastic mentors. Majority of them have actually been women.
Yeah.
So why don't you take a bit of your thought process to explain to our viewers what defines a mentor? What, according to you, is a good mentor?
Yeah.
And how is mentorship supposed to be identified to go across and elevate yourself in that journey of an entrepreneurship? Because a lot of our viewers would die to find right mentors. They would be looking for good mentors. How do you identify that? What is that pulse of saying that this is someone that I know I can resonate with, and perhaps that 1 hour a month or 1 hour a week or 1 hour a fortnight is going to change the game for me?
Right. No, I think super important and complex question, and I hope I'm able to do justice. But you're sort of what my experience is, Vinayak. Like you said, right? I think there has to be some credibility when somebody comes into the mentor sort of role as well as the mentee role. Right? Today, for example, let's say I'm starting out of college and I'm expecting a CEO of a large VC fund to be my mentor. But what have I done as a mentee to sort of deserve that person as my mentor, right? So I think the credibility is on both sides. You need to be able to say that this is what I have done and this is what I bring to the table.
True.
And like you rightly said, I think it also boils down to why you're doing this. If you're doing it, and I know a lot of mentors who want to do this for, equity, right? And it's really surprising because it is, according to me, mentorship, and, maybe I've been very fortunate to have mentors who did it for just giving back, right? Just paying it forward rather, right? And that's how I sort of value mentorship. And for me, it has been a lot of sort of, help in my journey. For example, when we started out, it was my mother-in-law who was actually my mentor, and she pushed me to start Fitternity. Again, it came from a standpoint that she had already built a venture. She had scaled it for 30 years. And I went to her because I knew that she understands me and there was a lot of resonance in terms of respect, right? And then when the relationship matured and when I actually had institutional investors, one of my investor is Anjali Bansal, and Anjali came on board, and she was a brilliant mentor because we needed her skill set at that point of time, raising capital, navigating multiple investors, and she came in at the right time, right? So I do feel like it's about the journey that you are in, a person that can help you in that journey, which sort of helps you to move forward, and then somebody who helps you to sort of move forward from there on. Yeah.
In a way, the mentor becomes the lifeboat.
Absolutely. And helps you peak one peak, and then from there on you need to scale the next height, and then you need somebody else, right? At least that's been sort of my journey.
And also teach you that life is about troughs and crests, peaks and valleys.
Absolutely.
You have to deal with both to
Correct.
the pinch of salt.
Correct. And one thing that I sort of don't like is entitlement, because a lot of people sort of reach out and say that I want you to mentor me, but do not have the understanding of the fact that the person is giving them their time, right? And to today, for anybody to contribute today, if somebody came to you for mentorship, right, you're giving them that 1 hour a month, 1 hour a week. You're sort of taking time out of something else, right? And they just can't expect it and be entitled for it. So I feel it's a very, very complex relationship. It doesn't work for everybody. I know a lot of founders who've had mentors in their investors. I've known some who've not had great mentors in their investors. But I think for me, like you said, and coming to the topic of sisterhood, I actually really believe in it, because like I mentioned earlier, whether it was somebody from home, my mother-in-law, or investors, or right friends, women have actually played a pivotal role to get me to where I am. And for me, I think the only resonance of that is to sort of pay forward. So I'm very passionate about helping women startups. I invest in women startups when I can. And that is, according to me, the only way. So in my opinion, sisterhood exists, and it's much deeper. And it is women who actually make other women rise. And that is, according to me, the only way forward.
True. I think at times giving back is the greatest contribution that you can give to the ecosystem without even knowing that how that intangibly goes across and builds. And intangible capital forms a great equation of a person's success story. So, take a step back. I want to take a step back because college also shapes a lot of character. One of the things which I am aware of, given our relationship, is also the fact that extracurriculars is something that you are very well known and active for in college. Why I ask this? Because a lot of people have come up with this learning, Neha, middle class mein kya hota tha, like you said, it's that regimented straight thought, yaar, padhai, naukri, survive. It's all literally dotting the line and saying you follow that trajectory. But when you get into that mind frame of that extracurricular, a lot of people have come in this show and told that how that actually defined them to break out and think that there's also that delta that can be achieved, that extra bit that will come. So talk a bit about that. How was college life for you? Because I want to get a little more granular, because a lot of our viewers may be in that age also, who are perhaps graduating from college, who are perhaps thinking that, yeah, is extracurricular mein participate nahi kare, lekin sirf padhai kare, but who knows, that might add on to a very different character trait.
Fair.
So talk a bit about that. Tell us a bit about that, and then I want to also get a little more granular into your consultant life, because life in consultancy is a very well talked about subject nowadays. But tell me a bit about, do you think extracurriculars genuinely shapes a huge part of a character?
No, absolutely. I think you're sort of bang on in terms of the fact that I think much more than education. I think there are three aspects, if I were to sort of put it down, and what impacted me. A, the books you read, because I have always sort of read. B, the extracurriculars. And I think C, mentors and teachers and friends who come at the right time when you probably need them. I completely believe in serendipity, Vinayak. When I look back at my life, I feel like I was meant to do this. I was not meant to, continue doing a job. I was not meant to become an artist. I was meant to start a startup. And hence, dots will connect backwards, right? So today, when I sort of look back, I know that a lot of extracurriculars that I did, college festivals, etc., right?
Which college were you in?
I was in Nursing Monji College, and those extracurriculars actually showed me the fact that I loved to lead. I sort of love to structure, organize,
be a control freak,
and get from point A to point B, get people along, love the thrill of building, love the thrill of creating. And those were sort of early seeds of how I think the personality would shape up and would enable me to even think in the direction of starting up.
True. And this is what people, I keep saying this, that a lot of our characters are defined with different things that were never supposed to be the primary objective. Primary objective was only about academics, but a lot of your characters shape when you factor a lot of secondaries, because
Correct.
I think macro ke piche na people forget the micros, and the micros are equally important for building the macros. And the good part is, I'm sure you've seen some of the episodes. The amount of love that's coming across for the fact to say that bahut din baad we are doing conversations in a program that's coming across where it's non-agenda. It's actually about the life of the person. It's actually about the journey of the person. It's actually about the wins, but equally importantly, the losses.
Right.
It's actually about the successes, but equally important, the failures.
Right.
Overall, it's about describing a combination of multiple things that creates a lifeboat. And hopefully, that becomes a lifeboat for a lot of our viewers. That's the essence.
That's amazing.
What do you feel of this? How do you think? What do you feel of this particular construct? Do you think this will add a lot of value to a lot of young entrepreneurs? Do you think this will hopefully teach them more of what not to do than what to do? Because life is about learning, but more importantly, unlearning. What's your thought?
Oh, absolutely. I completely believe, and we've spoken about Lifeboat as a concept, and I think that, there are things that as an entrepreneur, if I'm starting out, there are those aspects which are about what to do, what is to be done, how to create a deck, all of that, right? But nobody really teaches you the stuff that, what you are talking about, what it takes, what kind of mindset you should have, what kind of things you should expect, how you should make the other person on your side, whether it's an investor, whether it's a co-founder, whether it's a stakeholder. So I think all of those aspects that you're bringing about, and the name is beautiful, right? It is, and for me, it sort of exemplifies in the form of saying that Lifeboat is not only a set of people, but it's also things that you do, and how you build your life.
And you were one of the first people I spoke about this. I still remember we were sitting in Soho House, and I randomly brought out this concept. And I told you, this is what I want to build about a year and a half ago. And you're like, you're going mad, doing God knows what, but you also were one of the most vociferous supporters of building this. So once again, thank you.
No, I think we're putting your midlife crisis into good use by starting this.
Yeah,
So
and I hope that the crisis actually becomes more of an asset for others who suffer that in their own lives. So this brings us to actually, before I go to the penultimate segment, this actually brings us to we'll keep stretching and we'll keep talking because there's so much to talk. But there's this very interesting story which is known in the market about you and the tiger. So there is this analogy which you've given on several occasions, which has made it very famous to say Neha and her tiger are pretty well known. So, but along with the tiger, there's so much of learning, right?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm not going to the Jungle Book construct, but I want the viewers to hear and understand why entrepreneurship is as crazy and how the tiger analogy brings across the essence of what entrepreneur truly is about. So why don't you tell that for our viewers?
The tiger analogy, I think it's been said and resaid, and
I know, but say it again for the sake of the podcast, man.
Okay, here it goes. Basically, one time a person was riding a lion.
Oh, you now changed to the lion, is it? I thought
Yeah.
it was a tiger.
Oh, it was a tiger? Oh, it was a tiger?
Yeah, last time it was a tiger, man.
Also, it must be a tiger. So basically, the person's riding a tiger, and everybody around the person is like, how is this person managing? And look at it, so glorious, the way she's riding it, she's got it all together. This is brilliant.
The tiger is the entrepreneurial venture.
Yes, and
For the uninitiated.
correct. Or doing anything that they are doing in their life, which is, which is crazy and impactful and out of the ordinary. So yeah, riding the tiger,
Okay, lion, tiger, one of the big cats.
Yeah.
Be comfortable.
Riding the tiger, and people around are like so glorious, so amazing. She has it all together. Look at it, right? So amazing. And the person sitting on the lion or the tiger is wondering, how did I get on this and how do I get off
Without being eaten up.
without being eaten up alive? So I think that's just a normal, regular day in a founder's life, right? It is as crazy as it can get, right? And like I said earlier, if you want to lead 100 lifetimes in one, then you please be an entrepreneur, because it will bring out the best and the worst in you.
And simultaneously.
Correct.
And you don't know whether that will consume or you'll consume that.
Absolutely.
That's the beauty. So thank you. This brings us to the penultimate segment. Penultimate segment is about Lifeboat.
Yeah.
Right. So tell us, Neha, what defines Neha's Lifeboat? Who are Neha's Lifeboats? What is the essence of Lifeboat for you? And how relevant do you think is the requirement of having lifeboats in individuals' life and journey? Take us through your definition of lifeboat.
I think my definition of lifeboat, is simple. I think you have board of directors in a company, but this is board of directors for your life, and they will basically help you navigate every single thing in life.
I can't believe she brought board of directors as an analogy of lifeboats, but yeah, that's Neha.
No, but
Who's the chairman?
Chairman is you. I mean, chairman.
God.
I am the chairman of the board of my life, at
Thank
least.
God.
I may be the chairman of the board in my husband's life as well, but in my life, I am definitely
That
the
we'll ask
chairman.
Karan in the next
Yeah.
season.
So the chairman of the board
He
is
may have a different view.
no, yeah, and the board of directors are basically there to make you live your most fullest life, and B, help you navigate every turn and every sort of way that comes along. And all of them may not be active at every given sort of point of time, right? For example, if I need to know, how do I navigate an exit, I will reach out to you, right? If I want to talk about something that's impacting me personally, or something that I'm sort of, figuring how to learn, I will reach out to somebody else. So I think for me, the definition is board of directors for life, who you reach out to, who are a call away, who will keep your who will keep you above the situation, and will do the right thing by you, for you, and unfiltered advice, completely objective advice. And yeah, I think that's who I sort of define my lifeboat as. I'm not going to reveal who all are there. I can only reveal.
No problematic.
Yeah,
I
only.
can't have so many pictures spreading across the screen.
Yeah, only the fact
Do you
that
have that many, or will it be limited? Now that's also catch-22.
I can't tell you.
Who
Yeah.
will you put your name into?
I'm not saying anything, but you are part of my lifeboat.
So I just don't want
Yeah.
to get the glory myself.
Yeah.
But therefore, you think it's a mandatory requirement, right? In my mind, I think life without lifeboat is, again, trying to get into a stormy sea without knowing whether you'll make that journey across. And the whole purpose of what I'm building, the whole purpose of this series is, there are two Indias here. There is an IIT India and there is a non-IIT India, like folks where you came from. So I'll give an example of a Merit Engineering College versus an IIT. Someone from IIT has a currency, and that currency is called the currency of access. So they have the currency of access to alumni, to faculty, to jobs, to the best names, picking up the phone and getting the best mentorship. There's a poor Merit Engineering College guy may not get that. He may be equally qualified, equally, spirited, the jazba, the junoon, the shiddat, sare might be absolutely at par, but still opportunity. And I hope that these learnings from amazing people like you, people who have built, people who have created, can become that lifeboat for them to try and help them in their journey. That's the purpose of this. Tell me, before we move to a very original section that the team has created, which they for some reason have named it Lifeboat Shots. It's basically rapid fire, and you don't get a hamper, so don't ask me that. But before we go there, one last segment about a lot of our viewers, Neha, may be young advisors. They may be young lawyers, young chartered accountants, young investment bankers, young tax advisors who are watching this. And this is my way of giving back. this is my way of going across and saying that here are certain aspects to try and build, because they all are building their individual clientele. They all are building their individual relationships. And perhaps one day they want to also create a relationship which lands up like this, where it may have started once upon a time years ago on a transactional thought process, but then moves on to where we as families party together. I think that is a very big USP. So tell me, how does an advisor become a lifeboat?
Follow Vinayak Burman's footsteps.
Don't. I don't understand hubris. I don't want to get into hubris. You're forcing me to now feel.
No, so I think.
Tell me the intricacies.
I think you can answer that.
When you start a podcast, I'll answer. In my podcast, you answer.
So I need to start a podcast to be able to get you to answer. Okay.
That's the reason this is my podcast and you're the lifeboat.
How does an advisor become a lifeboat to somebody?
Yeah, how does this happen, man? How does this happen? How do people who want to build and come and land up with a client at this?
Again, I don't think something like this is outcome backwards. See, there are things which are input forward and there are some things which are output backward.
Explain these because people don't understand. So what is outcome backward? What is input forward? You're trying to create those jargons and confuse the shit out of a lot of viewers who are not initiative.
Outcome backwards, as the name says.
Stop showing off. Explain it.
Outcome backwards, as the name says, you basically plan for working backwards from the outcome that you want. So, for example, if you reverse calculate and you say that okay, you want to get to 100, how do you go backwards? First, build the initial 10, build it on top, then how do you sort of multiply and get to 100? That is outcome backwards versus input forward, which is to say that hey, I have done 1. Now, what else can I do next year? Can I grow by 20%? Okay, let me go to 12. Then can I add another account? Okay, I'll grow to 30. So it's more in terms of just take each day as it comes and you keep building, right? Incrementally, and just the power of compounding. So I feel like something like this that you asked, a relationship like this, or as a young advisor, how do they become someone's lifeboat? I think it's not something that you can think about outcome backwards. I think you can just look at it saying that you do the right things from now until the next step, and from the next step to the next step. And whatever that journey is, I think sort of focus on building the right things, building it with the right people, and having the right relationships with trust, stuff that we spoke about.
It just builds on. And there's something that you can't really go across and structure.
Exactly.
It evolves.
Correct.
And what I love was the fact that you actually followed my instruction to explain both the connotations, whereas the script would have explained that in the explanatory note, but it also comes to show that you can be a very good teacher. So maybe you want to go across and do that as a mentorship session as well.
Sure.
This brings us to the
finale.
No hampers, only a big hug. But it's called the Lifeboat Shots.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to get a cup also somewhere for you to sign, but obviously that's not been given, or at least it's not around me somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll come. While we talk, it'll come, and this is the beauty of this podcast. Everything happens in its own flow. Use the heart like you did for the entire segment. Don't use that brain. Answer. If you had the chance to make one thing right, one moment of life right, recalibrate one moment, what would it be and why?
Spend more time with my dad before he passed away.
I think that's something which personal loss is something which cannot be factored at any point of time. See, again, you were supposed to, you're using your heart, so I can't even say that you're making it an emotional point. Okay, let me ask a very interesting second question. This is a beautiful plug and more indicated towards current. If you get a chance to go on a date with a popular person, which popular figure would you like to go on a date with? This is so goddamn coffee with the style.
Popular in what sense?
I don't know, man. It's just said popular. Popular in your mind. You define popularity. It could be the abs or it could be the performance.
I'll go with Farhan Akhtar.
Yeah? Combination of both. Cheeky. Tell us 3 funny things about you that people don't know.
Funny things?
Yeah. You can be funny. Trust me, I've seen it.
No, I have a very dry sense of humor. So I think sometimes people don't get it. But it has been a joke. And only I'm laughing. And that can happen. And it's funny to me.
Yeah.
And I think
I meant funny to the world, but
yeah,
Like I'm actually visualizing. Suddenly you're sitting in a party and just laughing on your own.
yeah, that can happen.
Okay.
Second is that I really zoom out of conversations.
Why
So
is
I think
that funny?
today, no. So basically, it's funny because people are talking and they think that I'm intently listening, and I'm making all the reactions and expressions that I am completely into the conversations, with sometimes even like just like all the hand gestures and
How many times did you do it
faces.
during the podcast?
No, zero actually, because I had to focus, right? I think with you on the other side, anything could have happened.
Yeah.
I think do these two. Yeah.
Okay, 3 such or 2 is enough. This is very interesting. I really want to hear your creative mindset on this. If you could have any superpower for one day, what would it be and why? This will be a innovative one. And you'll come up with something which is non-cliche. I'm hoping.
If I had to have one superpower, it would be. Oh, there's just so many that come to my mind, but I want to
Something
pick
that
one.
you really yearn for. It's a life, it's a rapid fire. You can't take so long.
Go into someone's mind and understand what they're thinking. Simple.
Mind reading is very cliche. Come on, India. I expected something better. Okay, this is boring, but you still have to answer. If you could eat one type of food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Dal khichdi.
Mobile or book?
Book.
Hardcover or Kindle?
Kindle.
Which is the latest that you're reading?
I'm reading this book called Unreasonable Hospitality.
By?
I don't remember the author.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self that one piece of advice, that 26-year-old Neha, that one piece of advice, what would it be?
Just don't have any limitations. Just go for it.
Yeah? What is that one skill that you're really meaning to try and learn but you haven't had the time yet?
Learn how to cycle.
Last but not the least, because we will hold you to it. Nominate the guest that you would like to see in season 2 of the Lifeboat.
Karan Motwani.
That is not nominated. You go outside the essence of family. That already has been blocked.
There's so many people, yeah.
Things
Let
that
me
make you
let
hard,
me
work
let
hard
me
for.
send
Karan is
you.
a friend of mine as well. I'll get it.
Let me send you the list.
No, name one. You're not escaping. This is going to be out in public. Try and understand.
Vijay Taparia.
So we'll hold you to it.
Yeah.
All right. That brings it to the end of our beautiful, beautiful segment. Before some very authentic, original action of signing a coffee cup and a coffee mug, which will go into our Lifeboat Hall of Fame or Cupboard of Fame, whatever you call it. How was it? How was your experience?
It was amazing. I didn't realize I'm going to actually speak about the things that I end up speaking about.
And some of the things you said for the first time in a public portal.
Yeah, and I think very intriguing questions. And it's always amazing talking to you, but I think the questions were super intriguing. I think it was honestly asking things that I wish I knew the answers to when I was starting out. Very interesting. Had a blast.
Thank you. Please do the honors. Write something nice. Tell us what you think. And this, with your autograph, will go into the cover, as I said. And that's a permanent marker. So don't write things that you can't do. Okay. Onwards and upwards, lots of gumption. Neha K. Motwani. Yeah, there you have it, folks. That's Neha Motwani for you from Fitternity. Now acquired by CureFit. But more importantly, a very dear friend. Thank you, Neha.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me over.
It was
Appreciate
good.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, you need to look at me. I can't talk like that. Cut.
I was writing a very important point.
No, but it is, yeah.
Sorry, my apologies.
नहीं मतलब वो I was just looking and I'm like अपने कप से उठाएगा नहीं ऊपर.
Sorry, guys.
हाँ.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll answer. I need a break.
And so now roll with BTSS.
Hi, this is Vinayak Burman. I hope आपको उतना ही मजा आया इस एपिसोड को देखने के लिए जितना मुझे आया इसको बनाने में. And if you think this adds value to your life, if you think this will teach you something, if you think this will help you to learn and create something in your lives, then go across and like, subscribe, share and comment. It will mean the whole world to me and my friends. If you don't have time to watch the entire podcast, then do subscribe to Vinayak Burman Clips and Vinayak Burman Shots, where we take out the most relevant extracts, the most important extracts of those podcasts, of those stories, of those moments for you and for your benefit, so that you can try and understand the gist of the whole conversation and yet take a lot of learning home. Till we see you next time, signing off, Vinayak Burman.